Hey kids, today we're going to be talking about Nicolas Steno. Now, Nicolas Steno was born in the year of our Lord 1659 in Copenhagen, Denmark. If we pause for a second, I can point out that his name isn't spelled with an H, and so he's therefore less cool than me. Anyways, in Steno's early childhood, not much happened outside of him being sick and all of his friends dying from the plague. It's also important to note that his father was a goldsmith, which will be important later. Like any kid whose childhood friends died, Steno was absolutely traumatized. Just kidding. As a young adult, Steno cut up animal corpses to study organs shared among different species. One of his larger findings was that animals had a pineal gland. This refuted Rene Descartes' idea that this is where the soul was kept. At the time, Descartes had just died and his work was next to the Bible in terms of importance. You couldn't swing a dead cat around without it hitting a theory or two of his, so refuting an idea was a big deal. But this is where Steno shines, saying that ancient texts and Cartesian deduction could not overrule experimental evidence. But whoa, I hear you say, and whoa is right. If we take a step back and think about the implications, it's honestly quite scary. See, Steno just said that the work of scientists is just as insignificant as the Bible. But what did the church say? Were they angry? They were angry, right? Well, see, kids, the answer is no. Nicholas was raised a Protestant, and he still was, and honestly, they couldn't care less. But what of the scientific community? Well, at the time, they were in a period of vast and new discovery, and so they encouraged his ideas. Nicholas grew bored of your standard anatomy work and decided to follow his father's footsteps to become a geologist, so basically, this guy rocks. Nicholas did a lot of work in his field, mainly involving fossils and how he could date the soil. In the 1600s, it was a common belief that mountains grew like trees. Steno's work seemed to prove this. Through examining the soil, he found that each layer could be dated back farther the deeper it was. But nay, he exclaimed. Using others' research, Nicholas hypothesized about a natural formation of sediment after collisions of bodies in the earth. And this would later be expanded on to become plate tectonics. After a few years and other miscellaneous discoveries, Steno decided enough was enough. He'd hang up his geologist hat, and with it, his Protestant one too. In 1667, at the ripe old age of 29, Nicholas became a good old Catholic boy. From what I could find, the majority of his works had already been published, and so no one really cared about his science. A few years later, he was really digging this holy thing and decided, the heck with it, I'll just be a priest. And by that time, nothing was going to stop him, so he'd just be a bishop too. This was kind of where Steno's story ends-ish. See, after his death in 1686, he went through the steps of becoming a saint and is currently on his third out of fourth called Beritos. This is granted by Pope John Paul II and is granted him the title Blessed. During Steno's later years, from what I could find, he became obsessed with theology. He studied all sorts of religions, and in a way it's poetically fitting that his scientific little heart could never be quenched in his search for answers. That's about it, kids. No excommunications, no denouncing. Steno just kind of did his own thing, and no one stopped or interfered with him. If I could leave you with something, it would be a quote from him. He says, "Beauty is what we see. More beautiful is what we know. And most beautiful by far is what we don't."